Thank you so much, everybody. My name is Thomas Ginn. I'm a researcher at the Center for Global Development. We've heard a lot about socioeconomic inclusion this week, as we should, and I'm going to talk very briefly about the evidence that we have on what we know about the current state of labor market access for refugees, what the effects of that are, and how we might be able to make that a little bit more politically palatable to move forward. So last year, with Refugees International and Asylum Access, we talked to over hundreds of organizations around the world on the labor market access for refugees in 51 countries. We put out the 2022 Global Refugee Work Rights Report that covers 51 countries around the world. And the punchline from that is that at least 55% of refugees live in a country that significantly restricts their right to work in practice. We go much deeper into different components of labor market access. We encourage you to check this out at refugeeworkrights.org. So clearly there's a lot of work to do on the labor market access around the world. Once in the places where these work rights have been expanded, what is the evidence that we have on the effects? In Colombia, refugees who are offered PEP regularization increased consumption by 60%, income by 31%, and formalized businesses 10% more. These effects were concentrated for men, for more educated, and in the main cities. In Jordan, refugees who have work permits, we saw increased income and food security while reducing child labor. And in Germany, shortening the work ban on asylum seekers increased employment rates by 20 percentage points. So around the world, we see increased socioeconomic effects for refugees that are extended work rights. But a key question is how these work rights might affect the host communities. This is a different question from how refugees overall, on average, affect the host communities, because it might differ in places where refugees have work rights versus places where they don't. So in Colombia, we see a doubling of the proportion of PEP holders. We saw a small reduction in formal employment of Colombians, 0.1 percentage points on an average of 65% formal employment. This was a little bit higher for highly educated workers and for women, so a small negative effect, but overall not much happening when there's more labor market access. In Germany, in terms of fiscal effects, shortening the work ban that I mentioned earlier saved the government an estimated 40 million euro per year in social assistance when refugees could support themselves. And on average, across low and middle income countries, effects on host communities, we see no differences in countries with and without work rights. So for a deeper dive, overall the evidence suggests that a large effect on refugees from work rights, but a minimal effect on the host communities. And for a deeper dive, I encourage you to check out the digest from the Joint Data Center that was published in January of this year. So, the status quo, we think about work restrictions, where aid has a limited effectiveness, it's needed for longer periods, it's needed for more refugees, and few people are winning. The Global Compact outlines a much better model forward. With work rights, that aid has increased effectiveness, it's needed for shorter periods of time, and it can be shared with more host communities where refugees and hosts are able to benefit. So how can we make this more politically salient and feasible in the countries where this doesn't already exist? We partnered with a refugee-led organization in Kampala, Uganda, to reach out to host communities with assistance through the refugee pot of money. And so we experimentally provided cash grants to Ugandans, along with a short message that says refugees have the right to work. And because of this, more aid can be shared with the host communities. And so over 2 years later, we found that these Ugandans showed a much larger increased support for refugees' work rights and overall more welcoming social cohesion measures, again, more than 2 years later. So a way for both host communities to benefit from refugees. When they realize this, they're much more supportive of hosting refugees and a way to facilitate the Global Compact moving forward. Thank you very much for an overview of this and much more research. Check out my website at thomasginn.org. Thank you very much.